Hi, everyone. Trista McIver here, Program Advisor at AMC NPO Solutions and host of the Strategic Nonprofit Podcast. In this episode, our guest will share how he was able to raise $5 million from a $1,000 donation. In this episode, I am joined by Arbazz Nizami. He was just 17 years old and he had a dream to help people in his community. In 2013, SAHAB Initiative found its first home for their food pantry and provided direct assistance programs serving hundreds of families. And in 2018, they expanded and now have a new location in the heart of San Bernardino, California. Welcome to the Strategic Nonprofit Podcast, Arbazz.
Thank you. Thank you guys all for having me, and excited to be here. And I feel like I'm in Canada, but I'm not actually there, but I feel a connection.
Well, it is sunny here today, so it's cold, but at least it's sunny. So, and can you please share with our listeners more about SAHAB Initiative and your role there?
Cool. So SAHAB Initiative really was a youth project. Myself and a few friends, we were really at the cusp between college and high school, and we were really thinking about how can we bring change to our community and find meaning. um, and we decided, hey, let's start by serving the community. Going back to that year when we first started, 2009, 2010, a lot of the questions that we had personally was that we are first generation Americans, immigrants. We are Muslim by faith, so there's a lot of identity and soul searching there as far as how do you actually find yourself in society. So we thought the best way to begin is by serving people that are in need, serving people that are impoverished, people that are suffering. And we saw the incredible poverty in our community and decided to really just take action. And that's sort of where all the journey began. It was planting small seeds, and those seeds eventually started growing, growing, growing. More people started joining on, and we were able to build this organization.
That's fantastic. That's at such a young age too. So are you considered a co-founder then?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Who are your other members?
So three of our founders, one of them is Mohammed Kuko, who's a data scientist.
Mhm.
Another co-founder is Malik Bendelhum, who is a nonprofit director. And then we have our final co-founder, Janara Wahid, who is actually serving right now as on the ground as a staff member with the organization.
Oh, that's fantastic. Wow, oh, I love it. I love it. This is great. I'm so excited to be actually talking to a founder of an organization. I've been trying to get this in the works for over a year now. So thank you very much. So how explain to me? We had a little chat earlier. How did $1,000 donation end up to be raising $5 million? Like, can you explain that? That sounds fantastic.
Yeah. So, I mean, look, at the end of the day, nonprofits are strapped for cash. I mean, if I was to take a survey of many nonprofits, and I mean, in the past, I've seen the vast majority of nonprofits in my area, they don't last 10 years, right? Uh, Primarily due to funding, lack of time, lack of resources. Nonprofits in Southern California, um, you can't be a paid board member, right? The majority of the board members cannot be paid, so it's very different than a for-profit where you can uh, spend all your time and make it sort of your career, right? Um, Nonprofits are not structured in that same way, so you have to think very deeply about what you would do if you were to get a donation. And for me personally, I knew initially from the beginning that um, if I'm going to get any money, I need to invest it well. And look, I might not spend that $1,000 right away to serve people, but if I was to invest it well and do what I could properly with that $1,000, I'll be able to help a lot more people in a few months, right? So, what we did initially with that $1,000, we did two key things. We made sure we filed the paperwork to become a nonprofit because we need that, right? That's a very important aspect. But the second aspect is we needed marketing. at the end of the day, no organization thrives without marketing and fundraising, but marketing as a whole is very important for nonprofits. So many people, what happens is when they have a nonprofit organization, they feel, humbled. They feel a level of humility because they don't want to show off what they're doing, and they want to really keep it to themselves, which is a noble trait. It's very positive. But from an organizational perspective, right, thinking beyond, ourselves as people, we need to think about, for an organization, the most important thing you can do is show what you're doing to others and inspire them to take action, and really invite them to be part of your cause. So the rest of the money that I got, I immediately invested into marketing, and we were able to find various channels that allowed us to grow our marketing very quickly.
So, yeah, so this is so, gosh, this is fascinating. So with that money, you didn't directly, give it to one of your programs. You actually decided to invest in the organization to then be able to become even more established
Mhm.
and create stability.
Yep.
Right, create
That- that-
stability. That's amazing. So with the digital marketing, so I know we chatted a little bit about this before the podcast as well. um with the pandemic, has anything in your digital marketing changed since the pandemic? Like, have you had a chance to, say, reevaluate the way you were doing things before? Has anything changed?
a whole lot has changed. One thing I know for sure that has changed is we're asking for a whole lot more money more consistently. I think,
Mhm.
we know, I mean, there's so many conversations that are happening every single day about people that are hungry, people are losing their jobs, people are
Mhm.
struggling to put food on the table, all these different things. Now, for nonprofits, this is the best opportunity to share actually what nonprofits have been doing on the ground for so many years. But these conversations are already taking place. So what we need to do is jump into the conversation. I know many nonprofits do feel a little scared about jumping into a major conversation like that or having an opinion, because all they want to do is really serve people. But this is so close to home that you have to have a position, and a point of view in all of these different things. And at very least, you want to do that so you have an opportunity for people to give, because people, you know, the initial response, the human response to seeing people suffering is empathy. You feel a little bit of sadness. You feel like you want to do something, right?
Mhm.
And unfortunately, the people that really are using this opportunity, right? And there's some good, some bad, but our politicians, they know how to pull on people's heartstrings. But they also know on how to mobilize to get themselves a position in power, right? So you see, in the past year during the pandemic, so many politicians and from local to major governmental organizations have utilized this conversation to say, hey, I'm going to be the hero for the people. And whether they followed through or not, a lot of that is yet to be seen in many circumstances, right? So that's why so many of us feel like, hey, we have to get out there and support these politicians, right? But I feel like that's one element, and you can create immense change if you're able to change policy. But in the meantime, we have our neighbors, we have our community members, we have people all around us that are suffering, and nonprofits are really that avenue to be able to create change. So they need to speak up and provide those opportunities more loud, in a louder voice than anyone else, because you can directly impact change today, right? You can find one person in your community that is suffering, that's impacted, and a nonprofit can help them um, change their entire life.
Now, you mentioned about, just in the earlier bit of that conversation, about asking for more donations. So what does that look like? Is that through Facebook? Is that through LinkedIn? Um, what exactly, are you saying in that? What's different, I guess, than or are you doing the same thing just more often?
Well, I think what's very important, and this goes back to a little bit what I just touched on, is
Mm.
the listening piece. I mean,
Mm.
What's different is that you have to listen to what people are talking about, right? I mean, you can talk about hunger, right? But not to talk about hunger in the context of what people are going through is a mistake, right? You want to be able to understand where the nuances are, where the challenges are, right? And speak to that audience and try to be very localized, right? If you're talking about local issues, right? Don't talk about just hunger blanket, like just put a blanket post or something out there. Talk about how it's impacting your local community and how people within that community can also create change. So listening is a key aspect of that, right?
Mhm.
Um, and also recognizing that timing has a lot to do with it. Timing is very important. I know for many religious traditions, right? If you're Muslim, Fridays is a big day to donate. Sundays for many Christians. So you have many people that have their church or mosque or whatever religion you are. You have these days that you're used to giving, and you might not be going in person to your religious service. That's an opportunity to tap into that community, right? There's other times that are very important to give, and every type of avenue, every industry has different types of people. But recognizing who your donors are and what are those best times, and at very least, if you don't know when those best times are, look at your trends in your data, right? If you have a website, when are people donating the most? Are you sending email reminders during that time? Or do you have email posts during that? I mean, Facebook posts during that time, Instagram posts, LinkedIn posts. You want to be able to understand really when are people giving. And there's probably some psychology behind it. There's probably some other things that are happening behind those reasons that if you dig deeper, you can understand. Um, and then, the other aspect of this is recognizing that the tools of donating are just immense. I mean, they're growing every day and you want to be the first in those spaces, right? And because not a lot of people are talking about it, because the vast majority of people on Facebook and Instagram and all these different places are not nonprofits, right? They're just regular people. They might not know about those tools, but for nonprofits, they should know that now you can donate from an Instagram story, right? You can put a story up on Instagram and you can click directly on the story. You can now fundraise on Instagram posts. You can put an individual post on your feed and you can fundraise for a nonprofit. YouTube, you can fundraise on YouTube videos, on TikTok videos, right? Um, there's some avenues on LinkedIn, right? Facebook has been there for a long time, but there's all these different avenues, and you should constantly be a observer and try to understand how you can use that best to mobilize your community. We talk about visibility. I'll give you one hint or one tip, right? Most people complain that their Facebook posts or the Instagram posts are not seen by enough people. But what are seen by enough people are your Instagram stories. You get very high visibility on that in that space and high organic reach, but not enough people are taking advantage of it.
Oh, that's very interesting. Well, thanks for sharing that. And it's what I've noticed a lot is about NPOs, since this past year is innovation,
Mhm.
thinking outside the box. And so in Canada, I think it's kind of like a food bank. So it's a place where you can go to get food. So yeah, one of your board members created an app for this. And can you explain a little bit more about that? Because it's kind of thinking outside the box for you guys. And now I understand that you're actually creating some revenue from that.
Yeah. So one of the things one of our board members was a data scientist. One of the
Mm.
challenges we had in our food pantry, like many food pantries, the vast majority of food pantries uh, are run by people that are many of them retired. Many of them are used to a very traditional setting, pen and paper. They're organized in a very specific structure that is not digital, to say the least, right? It's not.
Yeah.
It's a very old school way, and that's nonprofits. I mean, technology sort of evolves in the for-profit sector, and then it comes into the government and nonprofit. But one of the challenges we saw is that, hey, we have grants to report on. We need to understand how much food is coming in. We need to understand how much food is going out, and we need to be able to serve people based on what their needs are. So one of our board members saw that incredible challenge in our food pantry many years ago, and he decided, hey, we're using sort of a makeshift model. We're using like Excel sheets and like different things just to organize this data. Why don't I create an app, a web-based app called pantry.com, where you can actually, pantry with an I, that you can actually intake clients, take them through the entire journey, keep their data, to be able to recognize, what type of food they're looking for, how they can serve them better, what type of food we're going to give out. But on top of that, make predictions about when things spike, when you need more food, when you need less food, and really how to actually just manage the entire food pantry. One of the interesting things is that it's not an interesting thing, it's actually a horrible thing, is that software tends to solve problems for organizations that make money, right? Very few people are making softwares to solve social problems. So he took all that talent that he had and decided, I'm going to solve a social issue, which is hunger, through this. And then, now we're able to actually take the software he created for our food pantry first, and actually rent it out, at a subscription basis, $30 a month. They're able to subscribe online, and so that revenue goes back into our food pantry.
Oh, it's fantastic. I think that's just amazing. Uh, so since you created this not-for-profit with you and your co-founders, what advice would you give for anyone else deciding to start out? Now, I know in the United States, getting status for not-for-profits is a little bit different, but I think that, as you said, the boards are volunteer, same in Canada. I think it's pretty much a very similar structure that way. But you've started from the very beginning. Are there some pointers that you can share that you've learned from for anyone else that's starting?
Well, the first one, because it's one of my most, probably one of the things I hate the most, is how much time people spend on their bylaws. I mean, bylaws are important, but I think many nonprofits get stuck in the paper, in trying to formulate this very crafty mission, very crafty vision, which are all important parts of it, but don't spend every year refining that. I mean, I think in strategic planning, I've seen many nonprofits spend every year refining every one of these aspects. What you should really be refining is actually what work you're going to do, right? And be consistent with that. So define yourself. If you're a organization, a nonprofit that's going to take care of underprivileged kids, define exactly where they are, who they are, and then try to figure out what are your funding streams, which is a big aspect of this, right? So many people go into the nonprofit space and they say, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to get a grant. When, how, no idea, but I'm going to get a grant and it's going to solve my problems, right? You need to define those revenue streams early on, get, some little revenue that you have, and then look at some avenues, right? When I say, how we took $1,000, let's say you're not an expert at digital marketing and you just don't want to go that route, right? For example, that $1,000 at that same time back then, I could take that $1,000, hire a mid-level or entry, early grant writer, right? Someone that doesn't have too much experience, but someone that has enough experience to write a solid proposal, and look at, 5 or 6 people out there where I can, foundations or government organizations I can submit a grant to, right? That is going to give me decent revenue. But don't do that without having a conversation with that organization first, right? The process of getting a grant is not just submitting a proposal online. It's a relationship. It's about reaching out to them, talking to them about if you actually are a good fit. And most of them, right, will have the time to talk to you. And that will also give you a better idea whether you should waste your time doing that grant or not. So it's really about being strategic early on and being consistent. The other aspect of people that, who are starting off in the nonprofit space, recognize this is the long game. For us, the first 3 years were maybe very slow. The 4th year, someone offered us a space. The 5th year, we were able to increase our revenue. The 6th year, we were able to increase our revenue. And then past 2 years ago, we were able to purchase a building that is now able to serve even more people. And we're able to rent out space to other nonprofit organizations. So it's really about the long game, thinking that, if you're going to enter the nonprofit space, this is not about, 2-3 years, you're going to have a whole lot going on, unless you're rich already. I mean, if you're a rich person that just has, $500,000, that just wants to invest and get rid of their funds through a foundation or something, that's different. But if you're a community leader that's really just working class, or someone that's, that doesn't have the luxury of giving away $500,000, then, you have to think strategic about these things.
Absolutely. Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, no, what you said about like, especially the mission and your vision, that should be pretty solidified. And the bylaws, well, especially the bylaws, once you get them down, you don't need to revisit them very often, unless something changes in government. I know a lot of bylaws here have been in existence a long time. So there's decolonization and of those bylaws, just to be more inclusive. But yeah, the mission, vision, and then having that solidified, so you can go to those foundations, the government entities, and actually explain what you are doing and who you want to serve. And then that way, as you say, like, don't go to a car association if you're helping, if you want something for like your example, where you're
Like
helping
hunger, for example,
food.
right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, know how to target your market. So that's great. So was there anything else that that you'd like to share that maybe I missed?
Um, at the end of the day, I mean, marketing is a very key aspect of it. Everything has to do, if you want to grow your organization, you need marketing, especially in this time and age. You need to be able to communicate with your donors, your volunteers, and people consistently. And social media is a great way to do that. Um, One thing that you might not want to do, but you have to get used to doing, is pulling out your phone and taking pictures of what's going on and how things are happening and telling your story, right? One picture can be powerful, right? Taking a picture of a bag of food in a community that's very impoverished. Not even, you don't even have to, some people, they shy away from taking pictures of clients, which I understand. Take a picture of the area there, take a picture of the bag of food, and write a powerful story that will resonate, right? And that will reach, thousands of people. If it pulls on heartstrings, that type of stuff grows organically. But really put your heart into the marketing of your organization, because that really communicates and inspires other people to support your cause.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, I think that is definitely something that's changed a lot in probably the last 10 years, is the digital marketing, for sure, at least in the last, 5 years. It's really
the last year is a whole new game too, right? It's just
and then even more so, right? Yeah, because we're at home. But you can push that donate button really quickly if it's available, right? Yeah. So how can we learn more about your initiative? And then if you can talk about the pantry.com again.
Sure. So, I mean, you guys can follow us at SAHAB Initiative on
Yep.
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. It's SAHABA Initiative. And the same thing, the website's .org. And then Pantry, you can visit Pantry's website, which is PANTRI, not a Y, but an I. I'm going to emphasize that, .com. And the website's really cool. There's a lot of cool graphics and things like that on there. So you can really understand right away how it can help your food pantry if you have one.
It's Baz or
Yeah, it's the Boz Show. The Boz Show, available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and wherever else you can find podcasts out there.
Excellent. Yeah, well, you know what? We'll add that to our show notes as well.
Awesome.
With the I, pantry with the I. Well, thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you taking your time and sharing with us your experience and the good work that you're doing.
Thank you guys for having me, and I'm really happy to be in Canada. Just to come out for a visit for a day. Feels good to get out.
And I'm in California, which is a place I'd love to be. Chat with you again.
All right, take care. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Saba?
SAHAB.
Oh, it is. You say all of the letters. Okay.
Yep.
SAHAB. Okay.